In the world of Fallout, things are sometimes not what they seem. We can never trust a character in one of the games to give us the whole truth about something, nor can we confide in what we see in the game worlds. The universe is filled with mystery and intrigue, which is one of the reasons the games are so highly regarded. While we deal with the usual for the series, mutated creatures, violent raiders, and the absolute hellscape that is the post-war United States wasteland, we also encounter things that just can't be explained by standard logic, and sometimes, the truth is far stranger than anything our imaginations can make up. When traveling the world of Fallout, we must keep our eyes open and stay at a heightened sense of alert. You never know who or what you will come across out there, and these are some of the strangest stories told in the game world. One of the strangest discoveries in the Fallout series lies within Vault 108. By the time the Lone Wanderer reaches the site, all that remains are various clones of a man named Gary. In the past, the vault was set to host an experiment where all positions in the bunker were assigned by the Overseer, with the exception of a few of the top positions. This, mixed with the main power supply being rigged to fail in about 20 years into the apocalypse, and the scientist's choice for Overseer being someone likely to die from cancer in a few years after the doors close, led the scientists to be able to create these clones and run their own experiments. The result was men who could only say the first name of the host they were cloned from and instinctively attacked any non-clones in the area. 54 of these Gary clones would be created, but by the time we see the vault in Fallout 3, only 12 can be found alive. Gary 42's body is found at the vault's entrance, and Gary 23's remains are found in the Outcast outpost, bringing the total to 14 Garys that can be found in Fallout 3. What deepens this lore and starts to add it to an even stranger category is what we can find in Starfield. While I'll admit that this Easter egg is more than likely non-canon, we are going to suspend our disbelief for a second and consider the possibilities. On Cryptids 3, we find the Crucible, a walled settlement filled with clone figures from various points in Earth's history. People such as FDR, Genghis Khan, Ada Lovelace, and Amelia Earhart can be found here, but again, they are all clones, much like the Garys we meet in the Capital Wasteland. The Operation Starseed quest will bring us to a location on the planet known as the Facility. It is here that the clones were made, and it is here that we find a shocking revelation. On the side of one of the cloning pods, we can read Subject Gary 23, Expiration 2277, transferred to V108. We see that this pod is broken open, and the year of expiration aligns with the date that Fallout 3 takes place. Not to mention, we see that Gary was transferred to V108, which is likely Vault 108. Strangely enough, the real Gary 23 that we can find in Fallout 3, as I mentioned before, can be found just outside the simulation pod in the Outcast outpost. This Gary was captured by Moral. At the base, the Outcast tried to get access to Gary's Pip-Boy, but in doing so, they killed Gary 23 when trying to remove the hermetically sealed device. So, what makes Gary 23 so special? Not only is he the only Gary we see outside of Vault 108, but we also see that he likely escaped or was captured from a far distant planet in a huge cloning device. As I stated before, this Easter egg is likely non-canon, though Bethesda has not said one way or another. Going by their own rules, if they do not explicitly say something is non-canon, then it is. How did the 23rd Gary get to Cryptids 3? He clearly wasn't the ground zero for these clones, as the original 54 were said to have been made inside Vault 108. Furthermore, the Outcast captured Gary 23 from Vault 108, so if he had been created at the facility, how in the world would Gary 23 have ended up back in the vault in the first place? Of course, these questions are easily answered by just writing off this Easter egg as a fun nod to a past Bethesda game, which it more than certainly is. But when you stop to think about the repercussions of this text on this cloning pod, it opens up Fallout's lore to a whole new world. Literally. The Wasteland in the Fallout series is an unforgiving place. Extremes cover almost every area of the United States, whether it be the climate, the environment, or the people and creatures that call it home. The post-war landscape is a dangerous one. Roaming gangs of raiders make life hard for settlers and farmers. Lumbering factions terrorize the local population, offering little in the form of support. and mutant creatures, both FEV and radiation alike, threaten human life around every corner. So when we look at the more mysterious side of the Wasteland's components, it's hard not to look past the cryptids that walk Appalachia. These wondrous monsters stand out amongst some of the worst mutated beings the world has ever seen, and many have mystifying origins. These cryptids were nothing more than superstitious tall tales before the Great War, but that doesn't mean they didn't have some truth to them. Shelby O'Rourke, like her father before her, was obsessed with cryptids. In fact, she made it her life's work to prove their existence. Shelby would enroll in Vault-Tec University, home of the Fighting Wendigos ironically, and pursue her dreams of finally confirming these cryptids at all costs. O'Rourke would set up a shack in the mire, a region she covered in sensors, in an attempt to catch some kind of evidence of these mythical creatures. Shelby considered joining the cryptid hunting group, the Truth Seekers, and was even invited by standing member Calvin Van Lowe, but ultimately ditched the organization after another member, Scott Scoot Conroy, berated her for being college educated. Shelby happily continued her work in the mire until one thing knocked it off track: the Great War. While she would continue her work after the bombs dropped, things obviously got more chaotic, though Shelby would theorize that the lack of humans after the war made room for the cryptids to start coming out of hiding. We can't talk about the pre-war existence of cryptids without bringing up Sugar Grove. This is a government surveillance facility that had its hands in many things, but the main things we are going to look at during this video are the holotapes about sightings of cryptids before the war. Inside the main building, we can find 3 holotapes about such sightings, all found on the same desk.
Beverly Solomon, Cryptid Analyst, 9/27/77. Grafton Monster Witness Report. Well, this is from one of those spelunkers that roam the hills looking for abandoned mining claims. Can you imagine? Well, the classic 4-foot wide shoulders, headless profile, deep sonorous cry, they got a good glance at it. The witness didn't know what it was, but the description is very clear. It came out when she started playing mouth harp, apparently. I'm gonna go out to look. Maybe that sound is the key. Beverly Solomon, Cryptid Analyst, 10/4/77. Snallygaster Witness Report. Another interesting tidbit from the locals, this time about the Snallygaster. This one's for you, Teddy. Alright, so the witness overheard a loud, shrieking sound and was rushed by a dark shape in the woods. It was, leaping at them, or maybe flying. They took shelter in an old German settler's barn, and it couldn't get at them, which is what really interested me. It screamed and hollered outside all night until dawn, but they knew the 7-pointed star on the wall outside would keep them safe. Yikes. Guess I know what my next tattoo's gonna be. Beverly Solomon, Cryptid Analyst, 10/25/77. Wendigo Witness Report. Ooh, this is a spooky tale. Okay, so this is my own personal sighting. I was up at the ski lodge this past week, enjoying some well-deserved R&R. I guess I can never really be off the clock, though, because I happened to see something hunched on the slopes ahead of me. I thought it was some old coat, you know? I was moving pretty fast, so I was just trying to avoid it. Anyhow, it just unfurls as I get close. Must have been 10 feet tall, but just all skin and bones like a dead dog. It had a deer's skull cracked open in its hands from the fresh kill it was eating. And as I go by, I get this powerful cold feeling through my bones. I thought to myself, Bev, you really lucked out getting that tattoo before coming out here on this trip. I can't imagine what kind of things I want to see next.
Perhaps Shelley was right about the cryptids coming out of hiding post-war. As though they are rare, we see them plenty in the wasteland of Appalachia. Let's start by looking at the Beast of Beckley. This cryptid was well known before the Great War and was rightfully feared by many near the town of Beckley. With sightings of a pale monster roaming the wilderness, people kept their distance, not wanting to become the next victim of this creature. Beckley, now located in the ash heap region of Appalachia, was founded in 1838. The town saw prosperity with a nearby coal mine, though it was eventually closed and a museum would be opened, showcasing its history. Beckley boasted being the birthplace of Shannon Rivers, voice actress for the Mistress of Mystery, who has her own story altogether. The town would also endure some kind of sandwich war when former grade school rivals would open neighboring sandwich shops, Sal's Grinders and Big Papa Mo's Lip Smackin' Sandwich Shack. This wasn't the only conflict in Beckley and its neighbor city, Welch, as the town was divided by labor disputes. This was caused by Atomic Mining Services and Hornwright Industrial Mining Company replacing their workforce with robots. Just before the Great War, riots would break out and the National Guard would hit the town, killing any protesters who were not intimidated by their presence. A trapper before the Great War, Janelle Priblo, who owned Priblo's Curios, would go looking for this beast of Beckley. It is here that we can find a holotape confirming this adventure.
Raymond, I'll mail you a list of things I need tomorrow, but I wanted to tell you what I found firsthand. This is big. This is the real deal. I found a dead bear, shredded by something. I don't know. I met a woman in Beckley who said there is a pale monster up here. The beast, she said. Listen, this thing, if it is half as weird as it sounds, it could be a gold mine. Crazy Calvin would pay out the nose for it. Raymond, this is a game changer. We could finally buy the shop outright, or we could get a new truck or hire some help. Okay, please bring those supplies to my old fishing camp near the pond north of Beckley. This is where I caught that two-headed fish, remember? There's probably a map to my hunting camp in my old truck by the shop. So drive down here and come look for my camp. Park near my car on the road. Okay. Oh, and, Raymond, I'm sorry I've been on the hunt for almost 2 weeks. I know it's taken longer than usual, but baby, I really think it'll be worth it this time.
Both Janelle and her husband Raymond would fall victim to the beast of Beckley, giving a tragic end to her curious adventure. This beast is a giant albino wolf, and I have noticed that it shares many similarities with the white wolf story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. She will spawn during the final parts of the unsolved death and taxidermy quest, and must be killed to pass. However, the pups she raises in her den will surely continue the legend of this cryptid throughout Appalachia. Another wolf-like cryptid, the Blue Devil, also lurks around the wasteland. This is another creature that has a strong reputation pre-war. Calvin Van Lowe from the previously mentioned Truth Seekers group, now known as Ares, paid a bartending guard from the Blue Ridge Caravan Company named Clyde to assist in investigating the Blue Devil's origins. Clyde would return with information suggesting that these characters were created and bred for racing and fighting before the Great War. This is something that has continued after the bombs dropped, but from what Clyde could gather, nothing really accounted for the sheer size of these creatures, though he estimates it has something to do with the area they come from. Most of the young do not survive the waste, but the ones that do become incredibly hostile and grow to a tremendous size. We can encounter this Blue Devil as an event boss for the Safe and Sound event, though some can be found in random encounters, most of the time attacking other NPCs, including other cryptids. The Blue Devil is featured in real-life West Virginia folklore. These stories date back to the late 1930s to early 1940s. This blue-colored dog-like monster would be sighted during the winter in Webster County. Moving from our world to another, we see the Flatwoods Monster, a fable of Flatwoods, West Virginia. Nestled in the forest of Appalachia, Flatwoods is known as the home of the Green Monster, and the cryptid has found fame both pre-war and after the bombs dropped. After the Great War, this area was housed by responders who were looking to help survivors. Delbert Winters, the town reverend, helped in these efforts, but would eventually be killed by a rogue responder, Sophie Yates, who wanted to join some raiders and was confronted by Winters. Now, Flatwoods is home only to Heather Ellis and her dog Chloe. The town features a meeting hall, a shop or two, and the Green Country Bridge, which welcomes visitors from across the Flatwoods River. The monster itself is not a creature from this world at all. It's an alien in some type of purple spacesuit, which is among the army of Zetans when they show their presence in Appalachia, suggesting that these Flatwoods monsters are nothing more than Zetan agents in more advanced gear. But we will get to Zetans later in the video. People like Colton Pickens even claim to have been abducted by these aliens and experimented on while they were in the spaceship, though the police weren't buying it at the time, as heard in this holotape.
This is Deputy D.B. Walton. Interview started at 3:35 a.m. All right, Mr. Pickens. Tell me everything that happened by starting from the beginning.
I was out behind my hot dog stand, taking out the trash, and I saw this light shining from the woods. At first, I thought it was a hunter with a flashlight. But then, the light started changing.
Changing? How?
Well, the light started turning different colors. First it was blue, and then green, and then red, and then back to blue. Wait, maybe it was green, blue, red. No, actually it's red, blue.
Yep, we get it. What happened next?
I suddenly got real dizzy, and I dropped the trash bag I was carrying. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground. I don't even remember falling. I looked up, and that's when I saw it.
It... Can you be more specific?
It was a man, but it also wasn't a man. It had gray skin and these huge black eyes, and it was wearing like a spacesuit or something. What was really weird was that it wasn't saying anything, but I could hear it anyway. In my mind, it told me to follow it onto its spaceship.
The Flatwoods monster again? All right, I've heard enough. Colton Pickens, I'm arresting you for drunken disorderly conduct and indecent exposure.
Indecent what? What are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong.
Colton, we found you on the roof of your shack, buck naked, yelling at the top of your lungs. Your blood alcohol was .23. And it took 4 deputies to get you into handcuffs. We all go on a bender now and then, but you need to keep it at home.
What? No! Come on! You have to believe me! The monster made me drunk. It was experimenting on me, controlling my mind. When are you people gonna do something about the Flatwoods monster? It needs to be killed!
I've had enough. Just get him out of here.
The Flatwoods monster has glowing eyes and seemingly hovers above the ground. Its long arms end in equally long fingers, and when intimidated, this Zayton will use teleportation and can disappear in a flash of light at will. The monster has the ability to control nearby NPCs and can do so with any of them that are in the area. This includes other cryptids, making an encounter with them incredibly dangerous. The Flatwoods monster exists in real-life folklore, cited in Flatwoods by 3 people in 1952, which was accompanied by a bright light in the sky. Another cryptid that has its roots in pre-war culture, the Grafton monster, was said to be seen by a motorist in 1964, in, of course, Grafton, West Virginia. The town of Grafton was founded in 1856, with its claim to fame being the creation of Mother's Day in 1908, as well as the Grafton Dam, located just up the river from the city. The town was sustained by its robust retail market and Grafton Steel, one of the area's largest mills. After being selected by the government as a preferred war contractor, the company ignored labor laws and cared little for environmental regulations. Due to this, by the year 2077, Grafton had seen the absolute destruction of the local ecosystem, and the constant dumping of toxic waste into the waterways decimated the local population and turned the town, for the most part, into what we see today. Even with the mill forcibly shut down, the Great War would come and turn humanity on its head. Now, the once automated mayor's assistant tries to run the city without human aid, but much like everything in Appalachia, it has become a former shell of itself. In terms of origin, the Grafton monster we see roaming around the wastes is nothing like its pre-war legend. These beasts were created by vault-tec during their experiments at their Huntersville facility. This location was used as a testing ground by vault-tec for the Greenhouse Initiative, which looked to be the last extension of the Pan-Immunity Virion project. On the day the bombs dropped, October 23, 2077, vault-tec would use experimental strains of FEV to create this headless abomination from some of the same FEV used to make another cryptid, the Snallygaster, but we'll talk more about them in a bit. This Grafton monster was sedated and transported for further research, but this trip would be interrupted by the Great War, which allowed the monster to escape into the wilderness. The Grafton monster we see today is a true behemoth, towering at 7.5 feet tall or 2.3 meters. This gray mutant wrecks everything in its path. The beast features glands that can produce heaps of corrosive oil that covers the surrounding area and burns anyone foolish enough to get too close. We can find Grafton monsters throughout Appalachia, with a couple lurking around Charleston, Hemlock Holes, White Spring Resort, and especially during the Grafton Day event in town. You just don't want to find yourself on the receiving end of one of those giant 3-fingered fists. From the mountains of Appalachia to the shining lights of Atlantic City, One cryptid lurks amongst the neon. The Jersey Devil is said to have been born when Jane Leeds was expecting her 13th child. The stress of her ever-growing family got the better of her, and she cursed her newborn by saying it would be a devil. The story goes that she did indeed give birth to a devil of sorts, some kind of dragon from hell. While the myth of this creature certainly precedes it, the Jersey Devil we see in Atlantic City is nothing more than a mutated wild animal. Its offspring, known as lesser devils, feature a chemical in their blood that is highly addictive, and is used to make the Kim the devil's blood, which is said to cause near immediate addiction that not even the best addiction removal supplements can handle. While many thought these lesser devils were the genuine thing, the real Jersey Devil still lurks in the Barrens, and if it gets a smell of those pheromones, one may just get to meet the devil himself. The mega sloth may have started life as just a pet. Before the bombs dropped, one Isaac Garahan had several of the furry creatures. These pre-war sloths were known to break free from their cages and wander around the family estate, and it seems they did just that right after the Great War. These gigantic sloths are a result of radiation, mutated by the bombs that fell over West Virginia. They are covered in dirty, thick hair and have fungus growing from various parts of their bodies, which can release spores to unexpected attackers or people who just get too close. While generally non-hostile, these mega sloths can be quite formidable foes if aggravated. Most of the time they can be found wandering around the mire or at the end of the Foshnot Day parade. These mega sloths are a reference to the giant ground sloths that are believed to have walked the earth millions of years ago, with the first fossil being discovered in Organ Cave, a location that was added to Fallout 76 with the Atlantic City update. The most famous of the cryptids that we can find in Appalachia is the Mothman. The winged creature has been spotted numerous times before the war, with the most infamous encounter being when multiple people saw it during the collapse of the Silver Bridge. West Virginian folklore paints Mothman as a half-man, half-moth who lurked around the town of Point Pleasant and was thought to be a bad omen, with sightings usually followed by mass casualty events. Right on the shore of the Ohio River, Point Pleasant is a small, quiet town, with one of its claims to fame being the Mothman Museum, which features various exhibits on the creature as well as a marvelous statue outside. In fact, a cult would form, calling themselves the Cult of the Mothman. This group would meet in a secret chapel for their rituals beneath the museum. The cultists would try to summon Mothman multiple times, but were ultimately successful on October 22, 2077, one day before the Great War would ravish the world. Brother Charles would warn the group that the Mothman warned him of a great flood coming the next day, which led to the cult taking refuge on the rooftops. The bombs would fall instead, but these cultists would survive by taking shelter in Lucky Hole Mine. As the group stayed huddled in this mine, the Charleston emergency government would be established, which led to people being disturbed by sightings of Mothman north of the mine. Over time, the cult would split in two. The enlightened would leave the mine early and leave West Virginia entirely. This group came to worship the Wise Mothman, a unique variant with purple eyes. They believed that this Mothman was the entity that gave them the warning before the bombs dropped. The other segment of the cult would form the followers of the Winged One and stay at Lucky Hole Mine. Eventually, they would launch crusades on Appalachia, gathering territory in the area. They looked at the various red-eyed mutants as manifestations of the Holy Mothman, which they believed to be the God of Light. The Mothman has been known to stalk wastelanders around Appalachia, just following and watching until they are discovered, which causes most of them to vanish quickly. Many of these mutant moths find perch spots and simply watch the wasteland, and most of the time, these more docile encounters lead to no hostility unless provoked by humans. This doesn't mean that the Mothman can't defend itself, and it does so by using quick movements while hovering. This is a form of sonic defense, but a less subtle shockwave can be deployed if the situation calls for it. Their wings are covered with a powdery neurotoxin. This is likely why we see what looks like shadows pouring from their bodies most of the time. This dust has been known to cause hallucinations and is sought after by the cult. Mothman eggs can be found littered around the areas they populate. These reddish soft clusters are highly protected by the cultists who extract oil from them for the purpose of anointing ceremonial blades, though they can be used to make a killer omelet too. The hatchlings that come from these eggs have orange eyes, which are also used by cultists to form armies for fights around Appalachia. The Mothman can be seen all over the wasteland, though sightings seem to happen more at night. The areas that are occupied by the cult of the Mothman also seem to have a higher rate of Mothman appearances, though the wise Mothman with the purple eyes will always appear at the Landview Lighthouse when the path to enlightenment is completed. Another cryptid that the cult of the Mothman has an interest in is the Agua, a giant monster resembling a turtle. The cult has shown interest in sacrificing this beast to the Mothman as they believe that the creature could be the key to secrets and visions of the past due to its ancient blood. The Agua is actually tied to West Virginian folklore due to the disappearance of a young boy back in 1746, though the legend really began to take off in 1983 when there was a sighting in Marion County. The shelled beast can stand on its hind legs, making it even more imposing than usual. It is covered with thick, scaly skin and monstrous claws that can tear a wastelander apart in seconds. Speaking of the shell, the Agua will use it as a defense mechanism and hide inside when it is overwhelmed, preventing any damage from being inflicted. People would be wise to be cautious of its mouth as well, as its snapping turtle-like appearance isn't just for show. We can find the Agua as the boss for the Beasts of Burden event, as well as in random encounters, most of the time attacking various NPCs like the Scorched or Cultists. There are more cryptids stumbling around the Appalachian mountain ranges, like the Sheep Squatch. This hooved goat-like creature was known to exist pre-war, but run-ins have become much more common since the bombs dropped. Much like many of these cryptids, Calvin Van Lowe would spend his life tracking down evidence of its existence. Ray Gary, former leader of the Truth Seekers, would be crippled by this beast, but kept it hidden from his friends and colleagues as he was worried the same thing would happen to them, or worse, if they went looking for this monster. This is proven by two graduate students, Michael Turner and Cindy Holloway, who would meet their end by hunting the cryptid. Both of these students can still be found in Appalachia. Sheep Squatches are always legendary enemies, making them one of the most fierce creatures to encounter in the wasteland. Their signature howl can strike fear into even the most battle-tested warriors, and their headbutts can knock the sense out of almost anyone. These creatures have poisonous quills that they can launch at their targets from a good range as well, so even keeping your distance can get you in some trouble when dealing with the bipedal goats. The Sheep Squatch is covered in patchy white hair with visible quills all over its body. Its hooves have increased in size and now act as vicious weapons at the end of its long arms. Its face seems to be just its skull, with very little to no skin covering it, making the revealed bone look absolutely terrifying. Two curved horns rest on top of its head that can stun anyone who comes too close. We can find the Sheep Squatch all over Appalachia, from Skyline Valley to the forest, and their howls can be heard for miles. The cryptid does have ties to the real world, as sightings have been reported all over West Virginia, especially in the southern areas of the state. Like mentioned before, vault-tec is responsible for another cryptid we see walking the wastes, the snallygaster. Right before the Great War, experiments were done with FEV, which led to the birth of this mutant. Though the company planned to release it after it grew to maturity, this wouldn't come to fruition, and the creature would escape, find other mutants to breed with, and subsequently introduce the snallygaster to Appalachia. The snallygaster is a slimy, pinkish bipedal monster with rows of disgusting teeth attached to a long neck and spikes all over its bulbous body. It features 6 limbs altogether, 2 skinny arms with razor-sharp claws, big meaty legs to stomp around the mountains with, and 2 other smaller legs supporting the creature's rear. Most alarmingly, the snallygaster has around 40 eyes, and when it sees you within range, it can use its incredibly lengthy tongue, which is covered in acid, to spit balls of this acid at targets. However, you will likely smell them first, as their odor is described as pungent, and they can usually be smelled before you see them. These cryptids are drawn to toxic areas and places that are covered in radiation, from which they are immune. Many sightings have taken place in Charleston, which makes going through the ruined city that much more unnerving. The tale of the snallygaster began pre-war, during the 18th century, when German settlers came to Frederick County, Maryland. These settlers referred to them as quick ghosts, and sightings included the beast coming down from the sky and swooping up their victims. Last, but certainly not least, we have the Wendigo, a truly horrifying creature that has been seen stalking Appalachia. Just after the Great War, people began to report sightings of pale, humanoid figures with long limbs and razor-sharp teeth. The creature's origins can be tracked down to one Morris Stevens, who would become the progenitor Wendigo, meaning that Stevens is what kicked off this mutation, which is what it is believed to be. Morris and his wife Edie were the leaders of a group of raiders known as the Gourmands, and they had a particular habit of eating people. This cannibal gang would be shaken to the core when Morris broke one of the golden rules of the group: never eat your own. During a food shortage, Morris would become more and more obsessed with cannibalism, and this would culminate with him and Edie killing one of their gangmates. The Gourmands were appalled by this, and regardless of his leadership position, Edie and Morris would be removed from the group. They would take shelter in Wendigo Cave, and Morris's sickness would worsen. He now craved flesh and eventually would consume Edie. After this, Morris would mutate into a Wendigo and hunt the rest of his raider gang down, putting quite the price on his head. While Stevens would be the first, he certainly would not be the last, as we see this mutation all over Appalachia. It seems to work the same way feral ghouls mutate, though perhaps due to the person's cannibalistic ways, the human flesh in their system changes the mutation to that of a Wendigo. We see this with Earl Williams as well, a Monongah area mine worker before the bombs dropped. Earl was a single father, as his wife left him and his daughter Maggie early in their relationship. After Hornwright Industrial bought the mine and replaced everyone with auto-mining robots, Earl and some people from town would decide in a drunken stupor to steal some things from the mine before everything was taken away. However, the supervisor would blow up the entrance to the mine, trapping everyone inside. Of course, there was no food in the mine as all of the workers had been replaced with robots, and one of the miners had died due to the explosion at the entrance. This led to the group making a difficult decision: to eat their dead comrade. Williams was hesitant about this at first, but eventually Earl and the rest of the group would eat anyone who died in the group. But with Earl, his hunger would grow, and he simply couldn't wait for people to die anymore. Earl would mutate into the Wendigo Colossus, one of the most terrifying creatures we can find in Appalachia. These colossi have 3 heads and are significantly bigger than their standard counterparts. The screams from these beasts will cause anyone to turn and run away in fear. If you see a Wendigo in the wasteland, it's best if you make sure it doesn't see you. These cryptids are extremely aggressive and can strike down humans in a matter of seconds. Sometimes, Wendigos will screech into the air, attracting hordes of feral ghouls to protect them. Wendigos like to take up shop in trees, watching their surroundings so they can ambush unexpected prey, jumping down from the treetops with a mighty shriek and catching anything that passes off guard. We can find these monsters all over Appalachia, with major sightings in towns like Lewisburg. These creatures stalk the countryside, just waiting for the right victim to get within range. Wendigos do not distinguish between humans and animals. Food is food, and if you get too close, you are what's next for dinner. The cryptids we see in Fallout 76 are an interesting bunch. We have always seen wild creatures in the Fallout universe. Still, when it comes to these myths of folklore, they have a little more weight and connection with reality due to the legends that are told about them in our own world. Whether a creature is created with FEV, mutated strangely, or really seems to have some kind of supernatural aura, it's neat to see this adapted to the Fallout world, and it makes you wonder, what else could be out there? If things like the Mothman and the Wendigo are as commonplace as they are in Appalachia, what other hidden monsters wait for us in the wastes? Perhaps due to the timeline of Fallout 76, we see more of these types of things. That would certainly explain why we don't see things like scorch beasts ruling the skies over the entire United States post-war. It could be that, this soon after the bombs dropped, these creatures thrived, and by the time we hit the timeline of the other games in the series, they simply are not as prevalent. Odds are, we will see more of them moving forward. If Fallout gets another spin-off game, or we start to see things about Fallout 5, I imagine a couple of cryptids will find their way into the game world, making wasteland exploration even more daunting than it already is. Just when you thought a Deathclaw was mysterious enough, you run into something like the Sheep Squatch or the Jersey Devil, and it really starts to paint a picture of just how diverse the wasteland and its creatures can be. That story you heard around a campfire may just feature the next monster you encounter in the Fallout series. While many of the vaults that we find in the Fallout series see the dwellers living out their lives as little more than an experiment for vault-tec on the Enclave, some are truly so close to hell that one may not wish their own worst enemy to undergo what they have to offer. Vault 112 hosts one of those experiences. One of the last vaults to be constructed, Vault 112 was built for the Garden of Eden creation kit creator himself, Dr. Stanulus Braun, who installed a VR simulator using the Visiontron loungers to keep the population in a sometimes nightmarish digital world. These people would have no idea that they would become Braun's playthings inside his sick virtual fantasies, where the doctor would often become bored, leading to him killing all of the inhabitants, wiping their memory, and then respawning them into the simulation, a never-ending cycle of fear, torment, and death. It is the last simulation Braun put into motion that we will be looking at today, an idyllic neighborhood in the heart of America, perfectly frozen in the country's golden years, located entirely on a single cul-de-sac, Tranquility Lane. Despite the cheery atmosphere and the black and white filter, something always seems off inside this simulation. Of course, we can point to the fact that we know it's a digital world, but even beyond that, we are trained to question things that seem too good to be true in the Fallout series. Everyone we meet is incredibly nice and happy, the sun is always out, and no one seems to have a care in the world, of course except for Old Lady Dithers, but most just assume she is losing her mind. That aside, most of the residents seem content in their perfect world. Of course, they each have their own troubles and triumphs. Roger Rockwell constantly deals with his wife Janet's jealousy, often opting to spend time in his basement and staying away from the rest of the residents in the process. Some residents, like Mabel Henderson, are known for their award-winning meat pies and love of gossip. Mabel has her fingers on the pulse of Tranquility Lane and is an excellent news source for the community. However, as I mentioned, Old Lady Dithers stands out. Her ramblings often make everyone uncomfortable, and when we talk to her, we can see why.
You don't belong here. You're not supposed to be here. It's not real, none of it. It needs to end. The suffering must end. We're not really here. We're not really talking. It's all made up, make-believe. We're sleeping, dreaming. The dream became a nightmare. It has to end. It just has to. But we're not in charge. He is. And he doesn't want us to wake up. He calls himself Betty now, but he's still the same. He can put on a new face all he likes, but underneath he's still evil. Braun. Bastard thinks because he helped create this place, he's God here. But I know he still uses the fail-safe terminal. I know it. It's in the abandoned house. He doesn't want us going in there because he's afraid we might find it. It's the only terminal to the outside. The only way to shut the whole thing down. You've got to find it.
Dithers is the only person who seems to know that Braun is running a virtual experiment here. She was likely tipped off when she fell victim to being impaled in one of the past simulations, which was unplanned by Braun. While he found it amusing, this big of a distraction could have led him to forgetting to wipe her memory when he needed to. Regardless of the reason, Dithers sits as the sole person to know that something isn't right here. Of course, besides the Lone Wanderer. But by the time we get to the simulation, it has been going on for over 70 years. Another person who stands out is Betty, a little girl watering flowers inside the playground at the center of the cul-de-sac. When speaking with Betty, we start to see that she may not be what she seems.
Yay! I knew you could do it!
Perhaps not the most inventive approach, but persuasion can be quite powerful. Well done. And for winning the game, you get a prize. You get to ask one question and receive an honest answer. Tranquility Lane is a simulation, a reality designed to play home to the denizens of Vault 112. It was my last and greatest project. I'm quite grateful that I was placed directly in charge of it.
There have been unexpected benefits to living here.
This is Braun's avatar in this world, an innocent-looking girl minding her own business in a playground, a fitting representation of someone who spends years playing with their dolls in a virtual world. Braun will direct the Lone Wanderer to commit various misdeeds around the block, eventually leading to killing the residents in terrifying ways, like dressing up as the legendary pint-sized slasher and stabbing them en masse. However, one could foil Braun's plans by heading to the neighborhood's only abandoned house. Doing so and entering the same sequence of notes we hear the birds singing outside in Tranquility Lane, using the various objects that make tonal sounds inside the main living area, will reveal the console for the whole simulation. It is here that we can force the failsafe. Doing this will result in any death having the same real-world consequence, meaning if you die in the sim, you die in real life. The Chinese invasion can then be selected, which will spawn several Chinese soldiers into the streets of Tranquility Lane, who will kill every single resident except the Lone Wanderer, Betty, and a dog that has just been mysteriously standing in the playground the whole time. Doing this gives the residents of Vault 112 the sweet release of death. For over 200 years, Braun treated them as toys, moving them from simulation to simulation, finally settling on their very own version of hell. This also locks Braun up in Tranquility Lane for the rest of his life, seemingly forever, due to the vault-tec support systems keeping him alive this long. A truly deserving punishment for such an evil, narcissistic human, as this is the same doctor that will scold the Lone Wanderer for killing all of the residents unless it is done for his enjoyment and under his guidelines.
Listen, you can't hurt people here, okay? At least, not unless I say it's okay. It's against the rules. I can fix it, but you better not do it again. Stop hurting people without me telling you to. You're ruining all the fun. I'll fix it again, but you're making me sad.
The world of Fallout is already scary enough without the idea of being unknowingly stuck in a virtual world, unable to die, living under the thumb of a sadistic doctor who looks at you as nothing more than another doll in his collection. Tranquility Lane absolutely stands out as one of the most surreal moments of the Fallout series, and it remains one of the creepiest locations in any of the games. This video has gone over some truly far out lore in the Fallout series, but one topic that hosts more questions than answers is the cosmic horror that we can find in the series, especially after Bethesda acquired the IP. There is something big going down in the background of the Fallout series that involves unseen monsters or seemingly godlike entities that people casually playing through the game may only get a glimpse of. Different groups have been battling it out for centuries to get closer to these beings and perhaps to be in their favor. From the pre-war until the latest part of the Fallout timeline, this presence of eldritch horror looms over everyone in the Wasteland. One of the best places to start is the Capital Wasteland, as out in the wastes, we can find a building that is seemingly just like every other structure we find in the area. The Dunwich building, however, is not like every other place we find in the Wasteland. Not at all. This becomes apparent pretty much as soon as we enter the site. The eerie presence of something sinister fills the air inside, and this is supported by the various audio logs that we can find from someone named Jamie, who gets lost both physically and mentally in Dunwich while looking for his father.
Why the hell would he come all the way out here? Dad's been a little nuts for some time now, but not like this, leaving me in that crappy old hospital without waking me. Without a goddamn flashlight. I made enough selling the meds we scrounged to have kept us both fed at the colony for weeks. Now I'm almost out of rations, my shoes are pretty much destroyed, and I'm still chasing the old coot. By my last reckoning, he was headed south. Maybe I shouldn't have waited so damn long to start tracking him. Trail's gone cold. Gonna wander with these guys a while. They say they wander the area. Maybe somebody's seen Dad. These guys aren't who I thought they were. Jesus, they killed that family. For a sack of rotten vegetables. Getting out of here next chance I can without catching a bullet. Hit a caravan today. Trev didn't see the kid and got popped. I took care of Tawny right then and put one in Thor before he saw her fall. That earned me some grub from the traders. Even better, they saw Dad. He was in pretty rough shape and still has the goddamn book. Trader says it gave him the creeps. Me too. But it's good to know he's still alive. Still headed south. He must have been trying to trap food here. I recognize his snares. I can make out a building on the horizon. That must be where he headed. If not, at least I get a roof tonight. Don't like the look of this place. Don't like the smell. Gives me the creeps. Don't want to risk a shot at the crows till I know what's in there. Sneaking in tonight. The raiders told spook stories about zombies in the ruins. Never saw anything like that where I come from. But Lord help me. They're real. Not quite what Thor said, but close. These things look... I think they really used to be people. God help me. I found Dad today. I didn't think it was him, but... the face. The zombies didn't touch him. I think he was becoming like them. Didn't know it was him until I found that old book near him. No more killing. I just need to go. Can't forget the book. All I have left of him. It's warm against the stone. I'll just rest a while. Sharp knife. Sharp knife to send him to Deep Temple. Flay and say my words. Abdul comes again on the Feast of the Weaker. Feast for the Deep Temple. Born again. Here. Al-Hazared. Yes. Yes.
We can witness some supernatural events here as well. Flashbacks to before the war can be seen when entering some rooms, doors open on their own, and objects can be seen leaping to the ground around us. Dunwich is filled with ghouls when the Lone Wanderer arrives, but it's what lies under the building that is truly fascinating. Not only can we find Jamie, who has turned into nothing more than a feral ghoul at this point, but we can also find an ominous obelisk that, when we get close, whispers the names Jamie was heard repeating in his holotape recordings. Strangely enough, these same whispers can be heard at the Red Racer factory inside the CEO offices. Though some strange things can happen here, like the sound of a beeping mine going off when killing ghouls and their heads exploding after, there doesn't seem to be anything else that we can link to the cosmic horror that we see in Fallout 3. Perhaps it has something to do with the surgeon who calls this place home. This obelisk is a physical representation of the deity Ugg-Qualtoth, an ancient being that lurks in the Fallout lore and one that we'll be talking more about in just a minute. It is said that someone pure of heart needs to press an evil book to this altar to destroy it once and for all. And with the release of the Point Lookout DLC, we see more of this story unfold and find out exactly what this book is. There is a cut sketch of this obelisk in the game files of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which is seemingly drawn in blood. In the dank swamps of Point Lookout, one can find Black Hall Manor. This Victorian mansion sits prominently just off the shore and houses Obadiah Blackhall, whose family has owned the dwelling for generations, going back far before the Great War. The last descendant of the Blackhalls, Obadiah spends his days lounging around the house and will sometimes use a ritual site located in the basement to offer prayers to Ugg-Qualtoth, the deity mentioned before. The Blackhalls lost an important book a long time ago, and one of Obadiah's biggest goals is to see it return to the family, which again, he is the last surviving member of. This book is called the Cryptids, and it is the same book the obelisk under the Dunwich building craves. The Cryptids is a decently sized brown book that looks to have a cut across the cover that seems to be bleeding. The swamp folk in the area have stolen this book from the Blackhalls, and it now rests among human remains inside a sacred cavern atop an altar covered in blood. Obadiah will pay handsomely if the book is returned to him, but if the Lone Wanderer travels back to the Dunwich building and presses the Cryptids to the obelisk, everything in the area will burst into flames, and we will receive 500 positive karma points, meaning that a true act against evil is performed by destroying this book. In the Commonwealth, the sole survivor can come across the company that owned the Dunwich building pre-war, Dunwich Borers LLC. This leads to a marble quarry that the group once owned, and the same kind of supernatural occurrences happen here that we saw back in the Capital Wasteland. Flashbacks to the pre-war period can be seen, while rumbling and footsteps can be heard, all of which lead to a ritual chamber. This area is filled with feral ghouls, though these are named characters that had worked here in the quarry before the war. A deep pit rests here, filled with water. This holds the secret of the borers and shows us what the company was truly trying to unearth with their work here. A giant statue peers from the depths, as if this ancient god is keeping an eye on the progress being made, before everyone involved went completely mad. One must ask, how did this statue get here? Is this a sign of some ancient city buried far beneath the earth? Or is it something more sinister, more supernatural, representing beings that we could not even begin to understand? We can find a crude blade that was used in sacrifices laying on an altar here underwater. Krymith's tooth is another artifact that adds to the mystery of this location. These sculptures show up a lot around the sites of these ancient gods, and it's something that we will look a bit deeper into later. As for underground cities, there is someone in the Commonwealth who knows a bit about that, and his family has its own curse to deal with. Born in 1835, Lorenzo Cabot would marry Wilhelmina and father 2 children, Jack and Imogen. Lorenzo was an accomplished archaeologist who strived to discover ancient civilizations. In 1894, Cabot would do just that during a secret expedition to the Rub al-Khali desert in the Arabian Peninsula. Lorenzo was obsessed with finding the city of Ubar, and this expedition would see him achieve his goal. Inside, Cabot would find non-human remains and evidence that humans came from a precursor civilization that had far surpassed the technology of anything seen on Earth. Along with this, Cabot would find a crown, which flooded his mind with knowledge, completely changing him after his return to Boston. Lorenzo began to demonstrate increased strength and even psychic abilities, and he had seemingly completely stopped aging. This led to psychosis, paranoia, and increasingly violent behavior. Lorenzo would commit several crimes and be sentenced to death. However, the influence of his family kept him away from this punishment. It was in 1898 that his family would confine Lorenzo to the basement of the Parsons State Asylum, halting his crime spree. Jack, Lorenzo's son, would discover that his dad's blood now had certain properties in it, and he would create a serum from it that could cause whoever injected it to stop aging. The family would use this serum, keeping them alive until the events of Fallout 4, 2287, making Lorenzo over 450 years old by the time we meet him. Cabot would have contact with another person who seems to be connected to the cosmic horror side of the Fallout series as well, Pickman, who is a serial killer of raiders in the Commonwealth. Inside Pickman Gallery, we can see various paintings from this enigmatic figure, with cans of blood littering the area. Pickman uses the blood and visceral from the raiders he lays to waste to make these paintings. Much like most of what we discussed here, this is a reference to H.P. Lovecraft, specifically his short story titled Pickman's Model, which sees the titular artist create horrifying works in much of the same way. Moving to Appalachia, we can find more evidence of these ancient beings and seemingly make direct contact with one of them, the interloper. Deep in the Lucky Hole mine, we can find this creature slowly stirring around in the depths of the earth. One may mistake the interloper for vines from a tree, as its skin resembles bark and it barely moves while being worshipped, hidden deep in the caverns of the mine. We know that this being is alive, not just from the movement, but because it bleeds when struck by weapons. Of course, this creature is surrounded by similar faces that typically populate the areas related to the cosmic horror that we find in the Fallout series, all of them watching over the beast, never blinking. The name, the Interloper, is not the official title of what we find here. This is the name given to the deity by fans. The in-game files from Fallout 76 label this Gut Puker. A smaller, similar creature, known as the Visitor, can be found in the deep. Unlike its larger counterpart, the Visitor does not move, and no one in Appalachia seems to be worshipping it, but its presence is still interesting, and its ties to the Interloper can't be ignored as it resembles it so clearly. The Art Deco statues that we can find around various sites that hold some of these mysteries are certainly worth noting. While they do not always represent something eldritch horror related in the Fallout universe, as far as we know, they can still be found at too many of these sites to ignore. We see this type of architecture dating all the way back to the first 2 Fallout games. However, these games never really explored the cosmic horror side of the universe. These sculptures were simply there to set a unique aesthetic in the game world, and Bethesda cleverly ran with the idea. Not only did Bethesda continue to use these art pieces on the side of buildings and such, but they also tied them into a part of the lore that only they themselves have really explored. We don't see anything in Fallout New Vegas relating to cosmic horror, though Lorenzo Cabot, in Fallout 4, does speak of a possible second precursor civilization city under the Mojave Wasteland. We don't see any evidence in-game when in the area. The titles that Bethesda has worked on directly, Fallout 3, 4, and 76, all have some kind of mention of these deities, especially Og Qualtoth hidden deep within their world. This extends to things like the role-playing game that was released, as well as Fallout Shelter, Shelter Online, and the Magic the Gathering cards. Something lurking behind the scenes in the Fallout universe is a terrifying idea. The world has already been through hell and back, and humanity, for the most part, is hanging on by a thread. To say the least, knowing that the Great War may have woken up some of these ancient cosmic gods is daunting. Overall, I think this is a tremendous addition to the Fallout lore, mainly because it isn't shoved in the player's face. Casual players of the Fallout games may never see any of these things, and if they do, they may never make the connection to H.P. Lovecraft and the cosmic horror genre as a whole, making the presence of these things all the more haunting when we do start to discover them. This inclusion makes you stop to inspect every statue you see in the wasteland, to question every building that they are attached to speculate if these gods have been watching us since the first 2 games, and listen closely to every whisper we hear on the wind, wondering if the names of these ancient ones will be carried once again. Are we alone in the wasteland? The question seems silly when you think about it. Even if we didn't have various encounters with extraterrestrial beings during our travels through the post-war United States, the answer still seems obvious. The universe is vast, more so than we can comprehend. So to think that the dingy humans that call Earth home are the only living things in the cosmos is laughable. Throughout the Fallout series, we see plenty of signs of otherworldly creatures visiting our home planet. From the very beginning of the series, we are shown that not only are we not alone, we have visitors, and not one person knows exactly what they want. The world we experience in the Fallout series is an exhausted one. The planet has been drained of resources, and humans, for the most part, are barely getting back on their feet unless they are lucky enough to be a part of the major factions that have surpassed the rest of the world's technology. So the occasional flying saucer or possible alien is the least of their worries. Most wastelanders are uneducated and illiterate, and they have a very basic understanding of their surroundings. Due to radiation and FEV alike, most probably wouldn't even recognize, say, a Zetan as an alien. Perhaps the aura of these beings could give off an otherworldly vibe, and for sure, their weaponry would be a surprise to even the most hardened wasteland soldier, but due to everything else walking around the wastes, aliens just don't stand out as much to the average person post-war. The truth is, these aliens have been visiting the planet far before the Great War. They seem to abduct people for various experiments and harvesting, but their full intentions remain unknown. Much like their reason for visiting Earth, the aliens' origins are just as unknown. Motherships have been orbiting Earth for centuries, and the post-war era is no different, with sightings of flying crafts popping up all over the United States. So what is known about these visitors? The prime suspects, dubbed Zetans, are clearly interested in mankind and all of its follies, even directly interacting with people in the wasteland. We don't know where these Zetans come from, and we have only seen a small fraction of what they bring to the table, and it blows anything on Earth out of the water. We see some kind of alien interaction in nearly every Fallout game, and this is not a mistake. These aliens exist in the Fallout universe and may have more to do with things than we think. Let's take a look at the aliens of the Fallout series. Around the year 2161, a crashed flying saucer can be found embedded in the desert of New California. Outside of the craft, 2 skeletons lay covered in dust. It's unknown when this ship crashed here, as the skeletons suggest that this site has been here for a long time. On the side of the craft, the message, "Property of Area 51, return if found," can be read. Area 51 is a restricted military base known for working on experimental aircraft and also known for alien conspiracies. Could this craft be from the fabled base? The misshapen heads and size of the skeletons tell us these beings are far from human, so perhaps the old rumors are true, and these aliens had contact with the United States government far before we found them lying in the desert. Regardless of origin, this is the first time we see some kind of alien in the Fallout series. We can loot a fuzzy painting of Elvis and an alien blaster from the location. Looks like even outside of Earth, Elvis is the king of rock and roll. The alien blaster is among one of the best weapons that we can find in the first Fallout game. As a single-shot weapon, it has the highest damage output per action point and a lucky critical shot that could do upwards of 400 hit points worth of damage, which vaporizes the subject instantly. While it makes sense to find this weapon here, as it's clearly the sidearm of one of these alien beings that crashed on Earth, it also proves that this craft and its inhabitants did not come from this world. The next time we see this weapon, though, it thickens the plot quite a bit, but we will get to that soon. These skeletons have been called the Bone Aliens, though I like to think that these are Zetans too. They may not look exactly like their counterparts in later games, but a lot of creatures have had a design change since the classic Fallout games, and it makes it easier to tie them all together this way. If these are not Zetans, it introduces the possibility that Earth has been visited by more than one race of aliens, which, while not impossible in this universe, is highly unlikely. I think it's fine to consider these little guys as Beta Zetas, which is what I'm going to be calling them from now on. This is the most we see of these aliens in the first Fallout. However, it seems the Brotherhood has seen some things as well, as a scribe at Lost Hills will sometimes say, "I've seen an alien spaceship before." While the next game doesn't feature any direct contact with aliens themselves, we see a lot of tech related to them and many hints to their existence, some of which are far beyond the grasp of the common wastelander. In 2241, around New California, a few hints to our alien visitors can be found. First, let's talk about the alien blaster mentioned before. We can find 2 of these in Fallout 2. First, around the town of Modoc, we can find an encounter simply called a trader with guns. This is Willie, though he goes by many different names. Willie is a slick traveling salesman who never misses the opportunity to make a sales pitch. Luckily, he has quite the item for sale. Willie will pitch to you based on a random choice of 25 different options for weapons. One of these will see him say, "This little gem is truly one of a kind." From the far reaches of, it works by pointing it like, "Look, I don't know what the hell this is. You want it or not. The price is," followed by how much he charges you, which is based on your luck stat. What he is offering here is the Alien Blaster. Who knows how he got his hands on this gun? Perhaps it's even the same one we find in the original Fallout. But regardless, this merchant has his hands on it. There is only one other place that we can find this otherworldly gun, and that is the heart of the remnants of the United States government, the Enclave's oil rig. During the trap puzzle, the Chosen One can repair one of these terminals. It's random every time, and if your speech skill is over 100% and higher than your other passive skills, you will receive an alien blaster and 30 small energy cells. This ties the government to these visitors even more, as it has long been rumored that the Zetans and the Enclave may have had more contact than people may realize. One thing to mention here are the aliens we encounter in the wasteland in Fallout 2. These smooth, purple, squid-like things are called Wanamingos, and they are not aliens. The reason we see this encounter listed this way is actually a really cool feature of Fallout 2. The Chosen One has no idea what a Wanamingo is, nor do most of the people in the wasteland. Because of this, when encountered, we see them listed as aliens with a question mark. This means that we have no other frame of reference for whatever these creatures are. However, after learning about these creatures in Reading, when we encounter them, they will be correctly labeled as Wanamingos because now the Chosen One knows what they are. I just think this is another excellent way the classic Fallout games immerse you in the world. There are many theories on where these Wanamingos come from. These do range from aliens to bioweapons to even supernatural beings being called by the native tribes to punish white people for bringing about the apocalypse. The truth is, they are just another mutant walking the waste, but they have garnered quite the reputation in New California. The most significant piece of alien technology we find in Fallout 2 is deep inside the Sierra Army Depot. Artificial Intelligence Project number 59234, known colloquially as Skynet, is likely the most advanced thing in the New California wasteland. Skynet will tell the Chosen One that it was conceived and developed in the year 2050. Through the use of alien technology, a new thinking computer was perfected. In the year 2081, Skynet became self-aware. In 2120, Skynet was given a new set of instructions and then abandoned by the makers. While Skynet itself is not an alien, not mentioning the fact that it was made with technology from out of this world would be a mistake. Not to mention the biomed gel that it needs to sustain its existence as a companion to the Chosen One. Most of these things we see involving alien life in these classic games act more as hints, but things really go up a notch when the Fallout series enters the first-person era, and Bethesda pulled no punches regarding the alien presence in the franchise. In the year 2277, In the capital wasteland, we finally get contact with Zetans, confirmed aliens from outside planet Earth. This occurs when the lone wanderer discovers a strange signal. This leads to a crashed ship buried in the ground. We can find an alien blaster here, but before we do, the Wanderer is taken aboard the mothership, Zeta. The crashed craft here is named Theta, and while on a mission to Earth, it clearly had some trouble. Theta was left heavily damaged, and the pilot was killed seemingly on impact. But before we discuss the absolutely ridiculous mothership that the Zetans have, I want to talk about the other location that we can find an alien blaster in Fallout 3. History seems to repeat itself, as the Enclave seems to have access to this otherworldly technology. At Adams Air Force Base, we can find the weapon locked in a hard gun case, and sometimes we can encounter Enclave soldiers using an alien blaster as well. The Enclave clearly have stronger ties to the Zetans than anyone else that we come across in the Wasteland. Mothership Zeta is absolutely massive. The interior seems to spread for miles and features a sleek futuristic design. The Zetans have little time for leisure, as nothing is found outside of the living quarters in the form of entertainment or relaxation. Almost every part of the ship exists to serve a purpose. Starting with the engineering core, this houses the central power core of the mothership, almost resembling a nuclear reactor. It is responsible for powering the entire craft. This location also acts as a central hub, connecting many other parts of the ship. The entrances to each section branch off from a catwalk that wraps around the power core. Under this, the Zetans store various odds and ends, and even have a couple of rooms installed here. Connected here is the Steamworks. This area holds machinery that propels the mothership throughout the cosmos. Steam shoots from almost every direction here, and the slightest disturbance could leave Zeta stranded. This room also connects the engineering core to the holding cells. These cells hold some of the people the Zetans have abducted during their interactions with Earth. The room features a coolant control panel and multiple rooms locked by energy fields to hold captives. Above the holding cells is a series of cables that allow giant claw-like devices to grab whoever is housed inside and move them quickly to other parts of the ship. Just past these cells is a room where various gear from the captives is held, along with a sturdy door that leads to the steamworks and back into the rest of the mothership. The engine room is pretty straightforward. It contains various engines that help run the ship. This area is pretty much one big circle filled with machinery and patrolled by Zetans and their support drones. Due to the sheer amount of equipment in this area, gas seems to be present in the air in many places, making it quite a volatile situation if combustion-based firearms are used here and making anyone without a good mask a little woozy. Speaking of support drones, we can find the robot assembly. This, of course, is where all of the drones we see on the mothership are made. They are carried through production on a big conveyor belt that travels through multiple rooms before finally exiting fully completed and stored for when they are needed. A second floor provides numerous terminals and teleportation devices for Zetans to oversee the production of these robots and assumingly guide the workflow when needed. However, we can see that some of these aliens may have had more free time and imagination than we thought when it comes to the placement of some toys just next to the end of the production line. The maintenance level is pretty much the glorified sewer of the mothership. Trash and waste litter the area, which is directly connected to the waste disposal section. Chutes travel through multiple levels of the ship's undercarriage to carry garbage to different floors of the site. A giant pit holding most of what is disposed of lays here like a garbage dump, and discarded tools and equipment are scattered throughout the dingy basement. The waste disposal section is where all of the discarded material is compacted and sorted, though one could probably find a treasure or two lurking within the muck. This maze-like room features conveyor belts and giant cylinders that smash the garbage, conserving space within the mothership. Trash overflows to the floor and sometimes reaches the ceiling in this area, so it is clear that the Zetans have a lot of waste during their travels. The area leading to the cryo lab and the engineering core is where some of the most interesting residents of Mothership Zeta reside, frozen deep inside their pods. We'll be talking about them in just a little bit. The frozen depths of the cryo lab are filled with various captives of the Zetans' adventures. Inside, we can see a room that is used for examining the corpses of the failed experiments carried out on the ship. Further into the freezer, we can find hundreds of capsules holding anything from humans to super mutants. A generator helps power the area, and the visible cold offers one of the most extreme environments in the mothership. The cargo hold features a large conveyor belt with various items placed on top of it. Many objects from the wasteland are organized here, seemingly being stored and studied by the Zetans. A large claw hangs above a pit used for gathering all of the things we see here. There is also a tiny waste disposal area here that allows garbage to be destroyed with an electrified chute. Just like before, one alien's trash could be another man's treasure, as some valuable things can be found amongst the waste. The Connected Research Lab contains a plethora of vehicles from Earth, including Clarabella 7. This is a space capsule used by Colonel Hartigan in the 1960s, but more about him later. For the most part, the rest of this area seems to be used to study the Zetans' favorite object that they have found on Earth, the Giddy-Up Buttercup. This toy horse appears to be the apple of the Zetan eye, as this room houses hundreds of the four-legged playthings. However, one stands out, as it is sequestered from the rest of the horses and surrounded by dead test subjects. Perhaps the Zetans found something that was a little more than they bargained for, or maybe this buttercup was precisely why they were collecting these toys in the first place. There is a decompression chamber used to secure passages for spacewalks on the surface of the mothership. This area of the ship features a big teleportation system that allows access to the upper levels of the spacecraft. This leads to an observation deck, which offers a stunning view of planet Earth while Zeta is in our atmosphere. A glass floor window acts as a portal to outer space. The room contains a few alien terminals as well, likely relaying data from what can be seen from the window. Just past this, we can find the weapons lab. Here, we can see that the Zetans have set up a couple of firing ranges to test their guns, and presumably, the weapons they find around the universe. Much like the other areas of the craft, terminals litter the area, and we can find various gear scattered all around that the Zetans are likely testing or examining. The experimentation lab is where we start to see the true horrors of the Zetans' involvement with the other species of the cosmos. We find human Zetan hybrids known simply as abominations here. These incredibly dangerous and hostile creatures are proof that these aliens have more than just a passing interest in humanity. This lab also contains hideous chairs with terrible-looking instruments protruding from them. It's here that the Zetans tinker with the humans they abduct, and oftentimes they record these sessions on captive logs that can be found in nearby terminals.
This is my final message. If this doesn't work, I hope someone gets this recording and can bring it back to Earth. I've been able to figure out how to use some of the alien devices, like this recorder, and I think I know what they want with our world. They mean to take as many of us as they can and change us into some sort of abomination. Many of us have been killed because of their experiments. They've been keeping us in cells and then moving us one by one to their experimentation labs. I've managed to escape, but they are looking for me. You've got to send help up here. As far as I can tell, they're never going to stop until they've captured hundreds, maybe thousands of us. The good news is that they're totally reliant on technology. Without it, they're no tougher than you or I. A small, well-equipped force could take this ship and free all the prisoners on board. That's your best chance. I've got to keep moving, so I need to hide this tape. Good luck to all of us, and Godspeed.
Next, we find where these aliens study the biology of the creatures they capture and create. The biological research room is filled with stasis tubes holding more abominations. Tons of machinery running nonstop fuels the area, and many Zetans have been tasked with keeping their human hybrid counterparts at bay here. The Death Ray hub lies ahead. This room acts as the power center for the ship's Death Ray gun, located on the outside of the vessel and visible in the following area, simply called the Death Ray Control Room. It's here that we can see the Zetans' most powerful weapon and even fire at Earth if we are feeling particularly nefarious. This causes a giant mushroom cloud and clearly a lot of damage to the planet and anyone in the area. It looks to hit somewhere near Ontario, Canada. However, the ripple effect extends into the stratosphere, likely destroying some major American cities in the process, like Detroit and parts of the northeastern part of the continent. Just before the bridge, we are met with the living quarters. These rooms house stasis chambers that Zetans use to sleep in, and there is a noticeable lack of entertainment or luxury items. leading us to believe that these aliens probably have very few hobbies and devote most of their waking hours to work here on Zeta. The bridge is where the captain of the mothership spends most of his time, sitting in his chair, directing the actions of the craft. More trusted officials are located here to maintain the ship's integrity and keep everything on track. The giant bay window gives us a tremendous view of the cosmos. This enormous mothership is a true marvel of science and proves with every area we find that Zetans are far superior to humans when it comes to technology, especially now that the planet has fallen to nuclear devastation. The ship is larger than a lot of cities we can find around the wasteland and would spell absolute disaster if it made its way to Earth and started attacking anything the Zetans could find. Zeta is filled with alien technology and things that we can find that are out of this world. Alien biogel, which can heal wounds, is found throughout the craft. This sleek cylinder filled with glowing blue liquid has the ability to mend some pretty nasty injuries. Its syringe-shaped counterpart, alien epoxy, has a similar effect on weapons. Applying this gel to your gear will fix most of the issues you are having with the things that matter most to a wastelander, seemingly acting like magic on any weapon you are carrying. Of course, Zetans have to eat, and we find various dishes on the ship that give us a little insight into the dietary habits of these creatures. Alien squid food is a wet, stringy creature prepared for eating on a tray. It has multiple membranes at the top, followed by 4 tendrils, and is brownish in color. Alien worm food is also placed on a tray and looks like something out of a science fiction movie, like a lot of the things on Zeta. It is dark gray in color, with light bulbs covering its entire body, and it features a dastardly looking mouth. While these dishes may not look appetizing to us, they could be delicacies to the Zetans. We can find 2 types of alien crystals aboard the mothership, small green ones and a larger, more orange variant. Not much is known about the use of these crystals, but I assume that these are Zetan currency, much like the bottle caps we use in the wasteland, with the larger crystals being worth more. Whatever purpose they serve, they litter the spacecraft. No cross-galaxy trip would be complete without bringing some defensive measures along, and the Zetans certainly have plenty of weapons to keep them company. Pistol-type devices, like the atomizer, fit comfortably in one hand and use alien power cells as ammunition, similar to the rifle counterpart, the disintegrator. For close-quarters combat, the Zetans use a shock baton, an electrified wand that shocks the target on impact. Its sleek design allows it to be swung hard and fast, and the bite of the electricity is enough to down any unruly captive. One of the largest weapons on board is the drone cannon, typically used by the support drones that patrol the mothership, though they can be used by someone brave enough to get their hands on them. They launch an enormous electric blast, exploding on impact and leaving devastation in their wake. One of the biggest technological mysteries on board Zeta is the aliens that are using inertia suppression fields as armor. Some aliens may look holographic or like they're covered in some kind of force field. This highly effective suppression tech can provide amazing protection for the Zetan behind the field. Moving back to the engineering core and close to the cryo lab, 4 people are suspended in stasis on board mothership Zeta. Each is from a different period of time in Earth's history, showing us a glimpse of how long the Zetans have been visiting the planet. Colonel Hartigan, an astronaut from the United States Air Force who was abducted during the height of the space race, rests in one chamber. When his pod failed to make re-entry or splashdown at the rendezvous point, the US government covered up his disappearance with a story about the capsule getting tangled up in high-altitude weather balloons. His pod, the Clarabella 7, also resides here on Zeta in the research lab, still in near-perfect condition and certainly not crashed due to some kind of balloon. We can hear a bit from Hartigan on a captive log next to his pod.
This is incredible. I'm Colonel Hartigan of the United States Air Force. I'm sorry. What? I don't understand. Oh, speaking to this? Yes. I was saying, I'm Colonel Hartigan, United States Air Force. Our nation has been conducting manned spaceflight tests and... I'm sorry. You'll have to forgive me. Frankly, we never expected to meet you all. I'm sure there's a great deal that our 2 species can learn from... Ow! Ow! What the hell? What is this? What are you doing?
A U.S. Army medic who was set to serve in the Battle of Anchorage was abducted the night before everything really kicked off. Elliot Tokorian spent most of his time tending to the wounded, which was a constant job in the area due to the Chinese Army's repeated shelling of the site. While Tokorian is only a private in the Army, he was placed in charge of pretty much the entire team, which made their eventual abduction by Zetans hit him that much harder. We can hear this desperation in Elliot's captive log.
Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, shit. Ah! Just let me go, okay? This is crazy. This is like batshit unbelievable crazy. I didn't do anything! I don't know what you want with me. Is this because of Anchorage? I swear, I didn't even want to be there, man. You gotta believe me. I didn't even want to be out in the field. I was hoping for a job in Washington, you know? What? What do you want? I don't understand. Why is this happening to me?
A genuine cowboy rests in one of the stasis chambers. Paulson is from the American frontier, or the Wild West as it's sometimes called. While returning home from a trip into town with his family, they were abducted by the Zetans, and unlike his wife and son, Paulson remains alive in these cryopods. Paulson is one big fish out of water on board the mothership and, much like anyone in his position, looks to take revenge on the Zetans for killing his family. His anger shows in his captive log.
Where's my wife? Where's my boy? What have you done with them? When I get free, so help me God, I'm gonna kill every last one of you. Ah! What are you doing? What the hell do you want with us? Let me go!
The cowboy is not the oldest person we find in these pods. Toshiro Kago is a genuine samurai abducted between the 1560s and 1600s. Due to this, Toshiro only speaks Japanese and wears some of the most unique gear one could find in the post-war era. While there is a language barrier between him and the rest of the captives, his captive log has the same vibe as everyone else's. One of the most interesting people we can meet on board Zeta is not in the cryopods at all. Sally was abducted right after the Great War, making her over 200 years old. Her parents were killed right after the war kicked off, which left her and her sister to fend for themselves in the wasteland. Sally is the only surviving member of her family and seems to mess with the aliens any chance she can get, as she has used her hundreds of years within the ship to learn its layout. Of course, we can also hear more from her in the captive logs that are on the ship.
Where am I? Where's my sister? I can hear some weird noises, but I can't see you. Why is it so dark in here? What's this machine? Please! Someone talk to me! I want to go home! Please! Where's my mommy and daddy? I just want to go home! Oh, that's right! Wait. What? Oh my God! No! Stay away from me! Get away! Hello, Mr. Alien. Yeah, I know. I'll talk into the thing. I don't know why you brought me back here. We've done this a whole bunch of... Hey! Giddy up, Buttercup! Wow! I always wanted one of those. Why do you have one? I don't understand. What do you want? It's a toy. A toy! Why are you so excited? You're weird.
Mothership Zeta is our closest interaction with the aliens of the Fallout universe. We spend time on the ship directly in contact with Zetans and even take control of the craft after the events of the DLC, which leads to some surreal lore of its own. The idea that the Lone Wanderer now has a giant alien spaceship orbiting Earth opens the door to a lot of possible craziness in the future, especially if the Vault Dweller can figure out how to go not only anywhere on Earth, but to other planets as well. Back on Earth, we can have one more encounter with the Zetans. Though it is short and sweet, a recon craft enters the atmosphere and explodes above the lone wanderer, scattering alien power cells everywhere, but also dropping the fire lance, which is a unique version of the alien blaster. It seems the Zetans have bad luck when trying to navigate to Earth. This is not the last time we will see Zetans though, as the Mojave has its run-ins with the aliens as well. With the Wild Wasteland trait activated just north of Horowitz Farmstead, we can find another recon craft hovering above a cliff with 3 Zetans surveying the Mojave surrounding it. These aliens are instantly hostile to the courier, and when checking the loot of the captain, we can find another alien blaster here. This is undoubtedly a choice weapon amongst the Zetans, though it didn't save them during this encounter. Not much is known about why the aliens have visited the Mojave, but it isn't the last time we see them, as the Commonwealth is no stranger to these visitors either. In 2287, a loud noise can be heard over the skies of the Commonwealth, followed by a horrific crash. This is seemingly another recon craft visiting Earth that is furthering the Zetan reputation of not having good luck when trying to navigate our planet. Upon inspection, we can see this crashed ship and a trail of green goo leading away from the site. Inside a nearby cave, the pilot of this craft, a Zetan, lies wounded but hostile, and, once defeated, can be looted for an alien blaster. This isn't the only place we can find an alien blaster in Fallout 4, as the hub's alien blaster can be rewarded to the sole survivor. This weapon is of alien origin and has been passed down in the Hubble family for generations. During the Creation Club quest Over the Moon, we see a larger, saucer-shaped craft try to abduct a Brahmin and drop off a couple of Zetans south of Arc Jet Systems. Investigating the area and ridding the Commonwealth of these aliens will net the sole survivor an atomizer, disintegrator, and a shock baton, stopping the Zetan menace in Boston once and for all. Though much earlier in Fallout's timeline, we see evidence of these aliens, with places like Appalachia becoming a target for some truly otherworldly events. We have already talked about the Flatwoods monsters' ties to alien activity. Still, standard Zetans are no stranger to Appalachia either. Periodically, beacons will show up around the area, collecting various data outputs. The aliens place these here, and we see their crafts in the skies above West Virginia, possibly the most contact that we've witnessed post-war in the Fallout universe. This event brings some of the Zetans' most tested warriors and captains to Earth, getting their data by any means necessary. For me, aliens have always been a tremendous background element of the Fallout universe, from the first time finding the crashed UFO in the original Fallout, to exploring the cave in the Commonwealth and fighting a Zetan. One of the biggest points of contention in the Fallout fanbase is aliens being canon to the lore. Before Fallout 3, people claimed that because special encounters in the first Fallout game were considered non-canon, it wasn't until Fallout 3 that we had solid proof they existed in the universe proper. But that simply isn't true. Had the crashed UFO in the first special encounter been the only evidence of aliens that we saw before the third installment, I could understand this point of view a little better. But it's not. In very canon situations, we see evidence of extraterrestrial life in Fallout lore, such as Skynet mentioning that it was made with alien technology, or the Enclave having an alien blaster on the oil rig. Aliens have clearly always lurked in the shadows of Fallout. I am curious to see if the Fallout show on Amazon will have any ties to the Zetans, and if so, how will they pull this off? Subtle hints like UFOs being visible in the sky every so often, perhaps direct contact with an alien itself. The possibilities are limitless, especially after the Mothership Zeta DLC. Regardless, aliens have cemented themselves in Fallout lore, and to me, it adds a little more whimsy to the world. It shows that the mutants and creatures we find in the wasteland are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's really out there, and to be honest, who really knows if Zetans are the only aliens? I left room in this video for a part 2 if it's something people want to watch. Thank you for checking out this video, and if there are some surreal things you remember from the Fallout series, don't be shy and let me know in the comments, as hearing your stories would be a great way to kick off a second part of this video.